Hi, CCYN community and anyone else who stumbled upon this video. My name is Michelle, and today I am joined by the person who has known me for the longest amount of time, aka my whole life, my mom, Amanda.
Hi, I'm happy to be here.
Happy to have you. How are you doing this fine Sunday afternoon?
I'm good, kind of excited to see what kind of questions you come up with. You know, I'm your mom. I'm curious.
Well, I've got a few for you. But first, I want to meet you where you're at and get a bit of an understanding of what you know about IBD. I mean, obviously, I have IBD and you're my mom, and you joined me on countless doctor's appointments, infusions, procedures, ER visits, but I think there can still sometimes be a slight disconnect or a gap when it comes to understanding IBD on a more personal level or through experience versus understanding IBD on a clinical level. So, with that being said, what do you know about IBD? And I'll just keep it open like that for now and see where it goes.
Okay, to be honest, it's was all new to me. It is something that I had heard about in passing from people at work or wherever, but I didn't quite understand or grasp the concept of it until you got sick. And then I realized that IBD is not just about having a sensitive or upset stomach, that
Mhm.
there is a lot more to it. There's a lot of pain, there's a lot of disability in being able to just go out, to just do things, always being concerned. And I have to be honest, I learned a lot about what all this means from you.
Yeah, it required a lot of research, a lot of learning on both of our ends, I think. But yeah, I think you definitely get the gist of it. For you and like your understanding, what is IBD like clinically? So I think you know it's like an autoimmune disease and everything like that. But if people were to come up to you and say, "Oh, what does Michelle have?" and you were to say, "Oh, IBD, inflammatory bowel disease," and they said, "Oh, what is that?" How would you describe it to them?
I would probably tell them that it depends what form of IBD you have. However, I believe the majority of people are constantly with some form of a pain and always tired because it's draining. It's a very, very draining disease. I would also say that one needs to try and understand that, having IBD isn't a nothing. Just because you don't see the person looking sick, it doesn't mean that they're not suffering from pain or exhausted from not being able to sleep or unfortunately having to run up and down to the bathroom. Unless you've been there, I don't think one can understand it. And to give the best example would be you. When you got sick, I thought you were just being dramatic. What's the big deal? You have a runny stomach. Take an Imodium. Take two Imodium. And so you did, and so you did, and days and days went by until you called me and said, I've got to go now to the ER. I
Yeah,
can honestly say I did not ever in my life expect to go through what we went through with you in that hospital room. I have never seen you in so much pain. I have never seen you so weak. I've never seen you so exhausted and just finished, completely finished. And that's when I got scared and said, what the hell is going on? And so my advice to people is to understand it, realize that what you see is not necessarily what's going on with that person.
no, 100%. It's an invisible illness, so it's definitely hard to comprehend from the outside, and it's even hard to comprehend from a perspective like yours, even when you're witnessing it and seeing it happening to someone like your daughter or a family member, someone that you love. You're never really fully able to grasp it unless you experience it, of course. But yeah, I mean, I think you've definitely gotten a really good idea and even a good sense of how to explain it to someone when it comes to symptoms. As you said, it was just extreme pain, definitely severe abdominal pain. There's, as you said, the fatigue. a lot of the times just like blood or mucus in the stool, weight loss, joint pain, fevers, ulcers, the list goes on and on. Obviously, the diarrhea, the urgency, and and it's really just the inflammation throughout the digestive tract. Sometimes it's just the colon, which is usually how it is for ulcerative colitis, which is what I have. And then with Crohn's disease, it's well, what do you think the difference between Crohn's disease and ulcerative colitis is? I'm not sure if we've ever really discussed that.
I'm not 100% sure from what I researched before you had your diagnosis, and we knew it was possibly one of the two, was that the one is more like, I think it's the Crohn's is more like a patchy. It's like all over different spots, if I'm correct, with the colon being affected. And the ulcerative colitis is just the entire colon being inflamed and, damaged, as in your case.
Yeah, sort of. So, yeah, Crohn's can affect any part of the digestive tract. So it's from the mouth to the poop chute, it can involve parts of the small intestine, the large intestine, or the colon, and as you said, it is definitely more patchy. The inflammation isn't usually continuous. So there are sections of, like healthy tissue interspersed with areas of inflammation, from what I know. And it can also penetrate through all the layers of the bowel wall, not just the inner lining, like the inflammation is for ulcerative colitis. And ulcerative colitis, from what I know, it usually only primarily affects the colon and the rectum. And the inflammation is usually continuous, meaning that it usually starts in the rectum and progresses up the colon without any of those healthy patches that you usually see in between, like you see in Crohn's. But the whole colon doesn't have to be inflamed. I know for me it is because I have the ulcerative pancolitis, so my whole colon's inflamed. But sometimes, you'll only maybe have it on the left side. But yeah, those are pretty much the textbook cases. I know that, it's different for everyone, and there's other umbrella IBD conditions as well. It's not just Crohn's and UC. But all I know is, there's just pain. It's for both of these conditions, it's just one common thing that they have is just pain, abdominal pain.
And also the consistency of having to have colonoscopies and to have the medications that you take, infusions, everything. It's a lot.
Yeah. And speaking of all the symptoms that we just talked about and like kind of like shared things, I guess, going on, do you know like what comorbid conditions that you've seen with me and with my ulcerative colitis, or are you aware of any in general for people with IBD?
Um, I'm trying to think here. Like, I mean, with you, I've seen there are days when you can't get out of bed and you can't move,
Mm.
and you've had to cancel a lot of your arrangements and plans a lot. And I think it's affected your life a lot. I believe that in your situation, your energy levels and physical ability to exercise, to move, has been greatly affected.
Yeah.
Again, I'm sure everyone's different, but there's also the ability on what you can eat, can't eat, just all those things.
Yeah, so it's definitely, I would say, chronic fatigue. Not everyone, but I do think that I think ulcerative colitis and having Crohn's, IBD in general, I think when you have an autoimmune condition can really cause chronic fatigue because it's your own body like fighting against itself. It's, you know, it's you're literally battling your own immune system at this point. And then you're
Yeah.
usually taking, drugs or taking the biologics or whatever you're putting into your system, and that's also taking an effect on you. And yes, it's helping your system. It's helping your system, it's helping your symptoms, but it's also contributing to the fatigue. So I think that's definitely one of the like comorbidities for sure. Um, And even with the exercising and the activity, there's also like extraintestinal manifestations like joint pain. I know I have that. I think that's probably caused by, inflammation as well. I have acne, which is often cystic, and my skin in general is just kind of inflamed and irritated a lot. And I think you know this, I'm like allergic or at least sensitive to a lot of things that I put on my skin, which I think could be immune system related for sure. And I'm anemic. I have the gallstones, you know about that. And I have the hypothyroidism, which is autoimmune as well. And I inherited that from you, so thank you. And and remember, I once had those really elevated liver enzymes following the infusion.
Believe me, I remember.
Yeah, so all of those are actually related to IBD in a sense. And I don't think there's actually much research-based or peer-reviewed evidence on this yet, but I've actually been reading up on how there seems to be quite a large number of people diagnosed with IBD who also meet the criteria or some of the criteria for Ehlers-Danlos syndrome or EDS, which I've recently talked to you about, and because I found out that I have that. So there's that possibly, and then I've also read that people with endometriosis have a higher chance of developing IBD, but again, I think more research needs to be done on that to determine if there's an actual comorbidity there. And I know that there's a link to cardiovascular disease, there's arthritis, osteoporosis, mostly as a complication, cancer. There's a lot. And that's not even including the psychiatric comorbidities like depression, anxiety, PTSD, and a whole range of eating disorders. And as you kind of mentioned, you have to kind of like, change your diet. So I think that's definitely a part of it as well with the eating disorders.
Probably, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so there's a lot and it's overwhelming. It's definitely something that I always try to remember. It doesn't matter what appointment I'm going to, like even a dentist, I always have to mention my IBD and my whole list of medications, which is something I never had to do before all of this, you know? So,
Yeah, it's definitely changed your life and your schedules and everything.
yeah. Um, so speaking of which, since you're one of the few people currently in my life who knew me pre-diagnosis, how have I changed since? So this can be mentally, physically, and emotionally. And I know that there have been other significant life events at play, such as graduating college and other milestones that have probably changed me as a person a bit, but how do you think that IBD specifically changed me when you look at who I was when I was 18 before I was diagnosed versus 19 and onwards once I was diagnosed?
Okay, the biggest change that I saw was your energy levels.
Yeah.
You were very active. You did dancing and school and saw friends, and you were just busy and active. And now you're after all of this, you're exhausted all the time. You have a tougher time getting through all the schoolwork and all your exams and everything. It drains you a lot more. I find that you are socially you're the same, but you're not as fun when you go out as you used to be because I think you're more concerned. What can you have? What can't you have? Is it going to be a good night? Is it not going to be a good night? And I think all that plays a role in whether you're going to have a good time or not.
Mhm.
And to be honest with you, it's heartbreaking to see that you were this very happy, energetic kid and so many ideas and so many, I don't know, plans for your future that have been, a lot of them have been eliminated and rethought to suit or fit in with this disease.
Yeah.
And as a parent, it's heartbreaking.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think, a lot has to change or, be altered in a sense. And yeah, I think de definitely I agree on energy wise and socially for sure. I think I've had to even take it down a notch. A lot of everything has just had to be taken down a lot. And when it comes to like the spoon theory, where it's like you have to plan if you're going to go out, let's say once a week. that day that you go out, like with a group of friends, let's say, that's going to take up most of your energy. So it's knowing, okay, the days leading up to that outing, I need a rest. And then I need to know that, like I have to have 2 days later to rest afterward. So, it basically kind of takes you out the whole entire week with just for one night out with your friends. And that puts a lot of pressure on that one day that you go out because you want
Yeah,
to actually worth it because you're like, okay, I'm going out with my friends for the whole entire day, the whole entire night, whatever it is. And I know that it's going to require me to rest 3 days before or whatever, 2 days before, and then that's going to take me out 2 days later. I'm not going to really be able to do anything. It needs to be worth it. I need to have so much fun. I need to make the best memories ever. And then when you don't, oh, that is just the worst. And then you're like, I could have done something else. I could have whatever. I could have done something better with my week. So it's also just like the guilt and for like kind of wasting your week if you decide to go off and do something. But then there's also the fear of missing out. It's a lot of conflicting feelings there for sure. But
absolutely.
yeah, I mean, I feel like the core of who I am is still the same, but IBD has, as we said, kind of altered everything else. Like my friends, as you said, kind of my goals, my career, my physical, my mental health, my relationships, energy, hobbies, diet, priorities, and my general outlook and perspective on life. And I'm still me, whoever that is, but now I have this disease that limits me in a lot of ways, which sucks, I'm not gonna lie. But it also removed the things from my life that weren't right for me that probably I probably wouldn't have been able to remove or eliminate on my own. So having a chronic illness kind of forced me to only have the things that are meant for me, which ends up being the things that are best for me, if that kind of makes sense. So hopefully that makes sense to people who get it. I know that sounds like a bunch of gibberish, but like I feel like the things that are meant for me are in my life right now, and I wouldn't have been able to eliminate them without IBD forcing me to.
Yeah, it's actually sad.
I don't know if it's sad though. I think it's like it's sad, but like I feel like it was a necessary evil. Like not having IBD, but I think that like there were certain changes I needed to make in my life or certain things that I needed to eliminate. And IBD forced me to do that. You know what I mean?
I agree, and I do know what you mean, but I would do anything to never have
Yeah.
ever seen you suffer the way you did and still do.
Yeah. No, I know. I agree. Trust me. I mean, we might have different views on this since I know I moved out for college at the time and you didn't witness everything and how my IBD progressed, but still looking on my life, I guess before IBD or the months leading up to my initial symptoms in 2021, how do you think my mental health was? And do you think that it played a role in my UC being triggered for the first time?
Definitely. 100%. Being the perfectionist that you are and always wanting to do brilliantly on exams and projects and in dancing and in everything, it put a lot of pressure on you. And I believe that that definitely played a role in all of this.
Yeah, yeah. No, I think it definitely did. Like I don't think it's not even opinion, it's a fact. And, like even the doctors asked me how much stress I'd been under or if there was any major life events recently, remember?
I do remember, I don't think there were any major life events other than you um, going, towards the college and driving and just decisions, a lot more new decisions in life.
Yeah, no. I just remember being under a lot of stress and I think it was just like an accumulation of so many different stressors. It was I just remember being like one after another and I felt like it was going on for ages. So really it was just chronic stress. But that
Yeah,
chronic stress just made everything feel bigger. So it was like it was moving out for the first time, remember? And then dealing with the finances of that, which wasn't a pretty process. And then family conflicts, which I hate handling, and then the ongoing pandemic and then navigating online school as a first generation college student. So I didn't know how that process went and practicing for my driver's license test as you mentioned. And then I had severe driving anxiety at the time. And then recovering from like eating issues that I had, prior to my IBD. And then oh my God, when the apartment was infested with bugs and I have a huge bug phobia. So there was just a lot of different things and it was just a lot for me at the time. And
Yeah,
clinically, I wouldn't say I was depressed, but I think I definitely had symptoms of anxiety and just really, really stressed. And I think just, I don't know, it was just a lot going on at once. Plus, I was eating a high fiber diet, RIP, don't do that. And yeah, I think if it wasn't then, though, I think sometimes later down the line, it would have been triggered anyway. My IBD would have been triggered since like right now or like recently I've been experiencing chronic stress on that same level and I haven't had any recent flare-ups. And call it better stress management skills or call it the magic of biologics. All I know is I'm not questioning it, but if it wasn't then I think it would have eventually been triggered.
probably, probably.
You know. I think there's
I
definitely a link between mental health and IBD, and I'm hoping there's more research done on it. So we can, do more about it. But I think it's also important to know, and we were kind of talking about this a bit, that while IBD takes a huge toll on those diagnosed with it, it also affects the loved ones of those who have it, like you. And even though you didn't see those symptoms gradually get worse, and to be fair, I didn't think it was anything severe until one day I kind of woke up and all of a sudden was basically calling the bathroom my home and then you were there pretty much every step of the way once you realized how bad it was. And I'm not sure when you realized it, since I honestly think I've repressed most of my memories from that time. But from what I recall, I think I had already been to the ER once or twice. But this time, I think I called you from my apartment for help, saying that I needed to go again to the ER. And then I think I said I needed to move back in with you. And I'm not sure if living with you again and then seeing me in pain like that and then running to the bathroom all the time is what made you understand the severity or what it was. But basically, I want to hear your point of view as my mom from the beginning to all the ER visits to staying in a cot with me during my, 2-week hospital stay to advocating for me, to watching me go through everything that I went through, to being discharged, and I want to know what toll all of that took on you mentally and emotionally.
Well, I can certainly say that in the beginning, I honestly thought, like I said, you were being dramatic. I did take you twice to the ER, and you were sent home and told to eat uh, some bread and to rest and have some Tylenol for the pain. And so that also would make sense that I think you were just being dramatic when so did the doctors.
Yeah.
But then it was so bad that we ended up going again. And we're talking, Mim, I would say like 3 in the morning. And we go back to the ER, and this time you were lying in the fetal position and you could not move. You were just, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. And that's when I said, something's wrong. And I screamed, and I was advised to tell the doctors that I wasn't comfortable to bring you home, which is what I followed my friend telling me that and did it. And they were kind of forced to keep you overnight. And that's when they started doing the proper tests. At this stage, you were hooked up to the IVs. You were so dehydrated from having to go to the bathroom all the time. You were so weak. You had gone so thin from just having nothing staying in your system that I honestly believe that had it been another 24 to 48 hours, I don't know if you would still have made it alive.
Mm.
Hence, the fact that you were 10 days in the hospital because you were so
More
sick.
than 10 days.
Now, more than 10, yeah, you're right. Now, I believe that when I saw you in that ER the night before you got booked in, I realized and I got very, very scared. No, I had not seen what you had been going through. You had just told me my stomach, and I just brushed it off because most people don't have UC and they just assume that it's nothing. But then after that time in the hospital, my whole perspective of one, how much pain you can tolerate, two, how long you can wait before you complain, changed everything in how I view you and the disease. That is when I started reading and listening to you and to the doctors and finding out exactly, how severe this is. But to be honest, until that night, it wasn't a big deal to me.
Yeah, no, I remember. I it was weird. Like I knew something was wrong. I didn't know exactly what. I knew something was wrong. Because it was just too much pain that something could not be wrong. And I think it was definitely frustrating when you didn't, I guess, believe that something could be that wrong. And I remember it came to a point where I think I texted you and I said, I just need to get a colonoscopy. I don't know what this is. I just need to get one. And you're like, oh, stop it. Like, that's such an invasive procedure. Like, you're being too much. And I was like, no, like, I need,
Absolutely.
yeah, I remember I was like,
I,
I need a
I
colonoscopy.
remember that. And I also remember one thing that you taught me after all of this was to fight,
Yeah.
to advocate for yourself, because you are very easily just pushed out the ER and told there's nothing wrong with you. We put too much trust sometimes in the medical system, and you need to fight for yourself, which you did, and you insisted on by going back and back until we realized there was something very wrong.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've been through, I have other chronic health conditions in the past, but nothing like this. And, we've been through the whole advocating for yourself thing, but it was, not to this extent, not so much so that we had to go in and out of the ER and like continue this fight. And for me, at least, it like I wasn't at the time a fighter. Like I was very for the most part, pretty passive. If a doctor said, nothing's wrong with you, I'm like, okay, whatever. I'm just, I didn't want to, you know, argue with authority. I didn't want to talk back. Um, but I was at the point where I wasn't necessarily like arguing or like advocating or anything like that, or at least actively or vocally. It was just that I would not stop going to the ER no matter what. I didn't care if it was every day. I didn't care if they knew my name. I didn't care if they hated seeing my face walk through the door, or I guess being rolled in through the door in a wheelchair. It's just I was in so much pain that I had no choice. It was genuinely like I don't have a choice but to go to the ER right now, or I feel like I'm going to die. So for me at the time, like now I do see what we were doing, or I know you were advocating for me, but like at the time I didn't even see myself as like advocating for myself. I just saw like myself going to the ER again and again, day after day, as me just fighting for my life. Like there was no other option. Like what was I gonna do? Wait the month until I had an appointment with the gastroenterologist? Like I knew I was not gonna last a month. Like I knew I wasn't. So like my only like form of relief was to go to the doctor, get some hydration, or go to the ER, get some hydration, get some pain meds. And even if they discharged me every day, I would just continue coming back because it was the only, you know, 6 hours of my life that I actually wasn't in pain.
To be fair, you were young. You had now been living through COVID, in the middle of your final year of school. So advocating for yourself would have been weird. It wasn't up to you to advocate for yourself. It was up to me, which I learned quickly because I did not in the beginning. And also from just realizing that we can't sit back. And what you did by going to the ER every single night was smart. Again, you didn't have a choice. You didn't go because we were trying to be smart. You went because you couldn't live the way you were living. But that doing that is what also saved your life. Absolutely.
Yeah. But no, I was 19. Yeah, sure, I'm like freshly an adult, but there are people who, you know, they might not have anyone to advocate for them like I did. And at that point, we shouldn't have to be advocating for ourselves like this. It shouldn't have to be like on the patient to, push for tests, to push to be heard. But sometimes it's the system that we're in, and it becomes our responsibility in a way. I didn't want it to be your responsibility to do that for me. It kind of became your responsibility, at least in the beginning, because I think I was so drained. I honestly did not have the energy to even speak. So you became my voice. And I was just, I was there. I was just existing at that point. But in general, I think that, you know, we just we have to advocate for ourselves. It's the only thing that we have, and it's the only way that we can survive until, doctors and medical professionals learn to not question everything and learn to see beyond the surface and what meets the eye and just to hear us.
Yeah,
But yeah,
absolutely.
we really went through it, and I really couldn't have done it without you. Like again, I was so drained, I was scared, I was exhausted, and as you said, I was done. I had no energy to think about procedures and treatments, and I couldn't call the hospital kitchen like you did to fix my meals to make it IBD friendly, and all I could do those couple of weeks, at least while I was in the hospital, was focus on healing and sleeping because I barely got to sleep when I was running to the restroom all the time and not being in pain. So, you being there to be my voice was really necessary. So, I appreciate you doing all of that for me. And I'm sure a lot of the caregivers out there listening can relate to some of the parts of your story and how you were affected too, because it's not easy seeing your loved one in pain, and there's not much you can do about it. But I know that, again, once you realize how bad things were, I really think that you did everything in your power to help me.
I certainly tried my best. And as I said, it was a horrible learning experience for me, but one that I guess I'll know for life now.
Yeah, I mean, I think we all learn from it.
Yeah.
But now that I'm in remission and haven't flared for a couple of years or so, how have things changed for you? And that's a more open-ended question, but feel free to compare how you just described how you were and how you felt with me being sick and being in and out of the hospital compared to how you feel today with that not happening.
To be honest with you, it's a constant worry. It's always in my head.
Mm.
Obviously, I feel more comfortable when you go out and that because I know that you're now at the point in your life where you know what you can and can't do. So I don't worry. Is she going to order the wrong thing? Is she going to do something she shouldn't do? Pretty much, I know you know how to control your life. But I worry that, the pressures of life and that you're going through school and working and everything that you will, you know, trigger off another episode, and then how will you get through it? And I worry about you with the infusions. Are they always going to take? If I didn't worry, I wouldn't be a real mom for you. I'm always going to worry about you. I know what can happen. In fact, you're the one who educated me on the infusions and how they work and how you can get immune to them. And it's a worry. It'll be a worry forever for me. However, I believe that you've learned to cope with what you have and that you've learned to make your life work. You know what you want to do, you know how you want to do things, and you're making it work for you. That makes me very proud, but it doesn't stop me worrying.
Well, thank you. But no, it makes sense. And I have similar anxieties too. not easy knowing that there will probably, be a flare again one day. And, it's not set in stone, but I was diagnosed early on, when I was 19, and I've been on the same biologic since. It's possible, that, I might, as you mentioned, develop antibodies to it one day, even if it's not in the near future, maybe way, 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 way down the line. Hopefully never, you never know. But, all of these things are possibilities. But I think what helps me the most is just to try to be as present as I can be in, in the moment, in today, while still being prepared. Because I don't like not being prepared, but I also don't like worrying like crazy. So I don't worry and
Absolutely.
yeah. So I don't know. I don't worry or fixate on flares every day, but yeah, no, I don't really think about them, even though I know that they might happen or probably will happen again. But I still I prepare myself, for example, by, I have a pack of adult diapers ready to go in my apartment, you know. I'm already looking into potential work accommodations, starting next year or maybe the year after. I have heating pads, in my apartment, multiple ones. I live nearby a hospital that takes my insurance. I know you guys live nearby a hospital that also takes my insurance, so I've got two
And
hospitals.
how about when you travel? Even with your traveling, you had to make sure you had extra insurance. You had to find out which hospitals were in which countries. You had to take all the stuff with you to try and take precautions. Exactly the same, but you've gotten to a point of being so good at it and so organized that you know what you need to do and you do it and you took care of yourself.
I don't know about good at it. It's just that it's become my new normal. That's really all it is. Like, I don't know if I even remember everything about the travel. That was so long ago. I think you're referring to the when I went to Europe in 2023. But yeah, I remember there was like the international health insurance, and it's really just having an extra set of medications. And even though I'm not like traveling right now and don't plan to travel in like the near future, I still have like extra bottles of medications, and this is not just for my IBD, it's for other conditions I have. I have an extra set just in case for some reason I lose one, or the other day my dog accidentally like kind of got into it and they were fine, but I lost pretty much a bottle of medication. So it's always good to have like a little extra and a travel pack and everything like that. So it's really just being prepared for things but not worrying about things. And so yeah, it's that, and it's just like always attending your appointments. So I'm not the best at attending all of my doctor's appointments. There are some that I sometimes miss, but I never miss a GI appointment, never. And I've never missed an infusion because those ones are just they're too important for me. I can't, when I weigh the pros and the cons, the idea of not meeting with my gastroenterologist, or the idea of missing a colonoscopy, or the idea of even being late for my infusion by a week or two, even though it might not have any clinical significance, it I would not risk that. That's just me. It's just something I can't do. But um but yeah, it's really just it's all of those things. It's having my emergency contacts ready to go, for people who can help take care of me in case of a flare, like you. And these are things that I feel good about it. It's not easy. You don't want to have to think of these things, but I think just having these things in line and ha being prepared, it's the most that you can do so that you don't have to worry every single day, like, oh, what if, what if? Like, no, like okay, if it happens, I have a plan. I know who to call. I know what to tell my job. I know I'll be okay. Yeah.
Good. Good. You're prepared. Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. Last two questions because this is getting a little too long, and I'd be surprised if anyone made it to this point. But what piece of advice do you have for other caregivers, parents, or loved ones of people with IBD? And my last question that's going to tie into this one a bit. How were you able to be there for me while also being able to take care of yourself the best that you could at the same time while my IBD was active. So that can tie into the advice portion or it can be separate, your choice.
Okay, so with regards to the IBD, I'm not sure what advice I could ever give you other than to just, you know, do your best to stay calm. As for me, I will always worry about it and I will hope that I'm always going to be here to help you as much as I can. I would say that how I coped with it when you had it is you go into a form of adrenaline pumping you don't think. I didn't care for me. All I cared was that you were going to live and be okay. I was lucky enough that I was able to work off a laptop when you were in the hospital and to be there as much as I could for you. And then when you were, as you were most of the time, completely mobile and just sleeping, I was able to continue working. So I was able to keep my job. Emotionally, I think I was dead. I don't think I had any feelings or any fear in me other than this overbearing, I'm going to fix this. I'm going to make sure you're taken care of mom mode. And that's all I focused on. Making sure the doctors came in, making sure they told us what was going on, making sure you ate what you were supposed to eat, make sure you were fed what you were supposed to be fed, and to fight for you as much as I could then. Once you were okay and on a road to recovery, which was a long road, and you really worked hard to get better, I would say is when I would just breathe and start focusing on, okay, now let me relax. Let me get back into my routine of working and our new schedule, our new life with your infusions and everything. And we made it work. Together, we made it work.
Yeah, no, we definitely did make it work. And like I remember how, I remember you sleeping on, the little bed that you made for yourself every night in the hospital, even though you weren't supposed to. And, you were there every step of the way, as I said before. But, I think next time around, or if you had to do it all over, I'm sure you'll probably say, no, I would do it exactly the same. Like I needed to be there for you and I needed to be in mom mode, like you needed me. But, if you had to do it over and still take care of yourself emotionally, even before things started to calm down and we got into the routine of things, how would you advise others, or how would you go back and maybe take care of yourself better emotionally?
I think that if there was more awareness of what would happen, or maybe if I had even an idea of what was wrong with you, I may have been able to research a bit so that I wouldn't panic as much. I would know that this is a disease that has, the ability to be controlled, that there are ways that you will become, to a better point in your life and feel better. I think that I would maybe have read more up about it. But then again, it took a really long time to get your diagnosis. So, in that respect, it wasn't all that possible. I think I would have eaten better and maybe left the hospital for an hour or two every day just to sit outside, get some fresh air, and maybe, recharge a little bit.
Yeah.
But I didn't want to leave your side, not for 1 minute. And it was COVID, so I couldn't really leave.
Yeah. No, I remember you basically eating all I don't even know what it was you weren't eating anything good. It was just like expired salads and nothing
At
good.
the vending machine.
Yeah. No, but I think that's a good point. I think having more education on, the disease in general, that's, online so that, people can look it up. So even like when you got the diagnosis, you being able to look it up and maybe even connect with other parents who have it and they can provide you with support or just to understand it. And even that can provide you with like a sense of ease and knowing that it's, not necessarily that things are going to be okay, but that things aren't the end of the world. I'm not
Exactly.
this isn't like the end of, Michelle. Um, so I think that that probably would have helped with your anxiety in that sense. And yeah, for sure, just on a self-care level, just getting that fresh air, knowing that I'm okay. Like I'm really just sleeping most of the day. You going outside of the hospital, even if it's just, you know, to get a bite to eat at the coffee cart thing that they had there and just sitting on the bench and then coming back in.
Exactly.
I'm not
Yep.
even gonna notice and I wouldn't have minded anyway. But no, I think that's really important just because you can't, fill someone else's cup before you fill yours.
Yep, absolutely.
But yeah, so no, I think that's good advice, and I love that. Hopefully, someone, even if it's just one person, listened to this whole thing and found that helpful, or at least felt seen through this conversation. And I know I learned a little bit more about you than I did going into this interview, so I call that a success. And with that being said, thank you, Mom, for joining me and for giving us your.
Always. And just what you're doing by trying to help others and educate them is the best thing ever because no one should suffer the way you did. No one. And no one should take so long to get a diagnosis. So hopefully this causes more awareness and people know, what to do.
Yeah, it's unfortunately, it's not a unique experience. I'm not the only one, and it's there's a sense of unfortunate comfort knowing that I'm not alone in that, but it's hopefully we start changing things around here. But I also hope that in general, it's not just about, at least this conversation wasn't just about from a coming from a patient perspective, also just going from a caregiving perspective and a loved one perspective, because I think there also needs to be more awareness on that end as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and as for the listeners and the CCYN community, thank you all for making it to the end, and I truly hope you enjoyed getting a sneak peek into my life with my mom, Amanda, and getting a non-patient perspective on some IBD topics. But okay, bye now. Thank you guys.
Thank you.